Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of 5 Minutes with Manufacturing.net. With me today is Aaron Sheehan, Vice President of Strategy and Partnerships at eCommerce, a B2B e-commerce platform built for manufacturers, distributors, and wholesalers. Aaron is here to discuss the two things that turn AI pilots into ROI in manufacturing e-commerce and customer experience. So, Aaron, many manufacturers are already experimenting with AI, but only a small percentage are seeing real ROI. Why is there such a gap between pilot programs and measurable results in e-commerce and customer experience?
That's a really great question. We actually just did a survey ourselves of about 100 or so executives in the manufacturing distribution space, asking, among others, this exact question. Part of it that we're seeing is there is a certain conversation that's happening in many companies, which is it goes like this: AI, 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 and the business is like, yes, but what specific problems, what specific processes are we trying to improve? What metrics do we want to make better? And the answer is AI, AI, AI. And so there's a little bit of a solution in search of a problem where some organizations want to look very sort of innovative and technological, but the capacities of AI and how it will integrate in with the existing data and structures and processes of the business, that actually takes time and work to define. And it takes somebody who is knowledgeable both about AI technology and the business itself to answer that question. And those folks are often very leveraged and in short supply. And so what I would say is we have seen a number of sort of pilots take place. When we asked the question, 80% of the people who responded to our survey said, yes, we've deployed AI in at least one function somewhere in the business. About 17% said it was working well. So, you can kind of see the gap there. One of the other things that sort of I think that we're seeing that slows down the pilots is simply quality of data. So there's an adage in programming: garbage in, garbage out, which is like if you start with bad data, you end up with like bad analysis on that bad data. AI is a machine. AI takes what you give it, assumes it is the truth, and does something with it, whether that's the text that you're typing into ChatGPT, asking it to write your LinkedIn posts for you, or if it's you're doing order analysis or basket analysis or customer account analysis if the underlying data is incorrect or incomplete. It's got a lot of placeholders in it or something like that. You're going to get weird, skewed data on the other side. And then, as with all things technology, the bad result usually gets blamed on the tool. But in many cases, I would say it's actually the data that is underlying it, that's being fed into the tool, that is causing the problem. So I think when you look at sort of a lack of adoption champions, people who understand the tech and the business, and then the fundamental lack of data, clean, good, actionable data that is being fed into AI. And I'm using AI super generally here, by the way. It means a lot of different things. I think those are two of the big reasons that you see adoption not necessarily all that high.
What are the two critical factors that actually move AI from experimentation into real business impact?
Man, that's a really good question. I think you have to be very deliberate about where you deploy the AI. So one of the things that we've seen, and this is borne out in the survey results that we did, and I'm happy to sort of provide a separate link to distribute, by the way, to that report. The early pilot versions of AI mostly came in two flavors in B2B, in manufacturing and distribution, that we've seen. The first flavor is a standalone point solution. So a vendor came along and slid into someone's DMs, cold called, did a webinar that someone attended, and said, hey, I've got this AI solution. It's totally separate. It's new. It's modern. It's sleek. It does amazing things. Would you like to buy it? And someone said, oh my God, this does look amazing. I will grow the biggest beanstalks in all the land. And so I will take your magic beans. And they bought it. And then they realized that a standalone tool is often really, really hard to integrate into the existing tech stack and operations of a business. Look, we all have ERPs. And a lot of those ERPs have flickering green screens, and they're very old, and they've been heavily customized. And the data that I need, that standalone solution needs, is locked inside of an ERP or custom SQL database or whatever, or spread across a bunch of different stacks. And it can be a real challenge for a standalone system that doesn't know anything about your business to be sort of like forced in like a square peg to a round hole to work with your existing things. So that's was one flavor of AI Pilot is a standalone vendor, right? Standalone vendors, it's hard to make it work. Interoperability is not what most manufacturers and distributors are optimized for. The other one is what I would say, um, Microsoft Copilot. I'll just call it that because, like, let's be real. Like, if you surveyed your, audience base, we're all slaves to IT makes us do the Microsoft thing a lot, which means we get whatever the Microsoft flavor of something is, which means we get Copilot, which has not been particularly well received, I think, and is generally not well regarded as an LLM, an AI analysis tool. And so I think a lot of IT teams have said, "Oh, you want AI? Great. Just like I enabled Teams for everybody and forced you off of Slack, now I'm going to enable Copilot for you, and now you can't use Gemini anymore or whatever." And so people are like, "Great, I've got the new version of Clippy in my Microsoft Office suite. What can I do with AI? I don't know. I can write emails that look alike. That's about it." And so I think a lot of times the capabilities of IT have not been fully integrated into the places where it matters. They're sitting inside of the productivity suite, which is fine if you want to write emails, but not that helpful if you want to do like financial analysis, unless all your financial data lives in spreadsheets that you are personally maintaining and exporting out of your systems, in which case you can then feed them into Copilot, and then Copilot has no idea what the heck it's looking at because it's a weird, like, heavily customized spreadsheet full of macros and VLOOKUPs and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't know. And so where we're seeing actual traction from people in the space is where they're using AI from the existing vendors who are in their stack. In other words, when my ERP vendor or my e-commerce platform vendor or my CRM vendor actually builds AI tools inside of it that are already natively aware of my data structure and how I work and the workflows and processes that I do, those are becoming more, I would say, accessible to people, and we're seeing more success there. So it's really challenging to bolt on something from the outside. It's also really challenging to get anything useful out of Microsoft Copilot. Sorry. Those are the two big reasons.
Hey, all love to Clippy, RIP. For manufacturers looking to move beyond pilots, how should they identify the areas in their e-commerce operations where AI will deliver the fastest and most meaningful ROI?
That's a really good question. So there's about 10 sort of major use cases that where we're seeing AI get plugged in. Probably the most, I would say the two big outstanding cases where we see deployed AI is order automation. So I say order automation and customer service AI. I want to start with order automation because I think we already know what customer service AI looks like because we all experience it on a regular basis and have been for some time. I'll start with order automation. So the order automation use case is sort of like document processing or things like that. So somebody sends me a purchase order, it comes in as a PDF or like a picture of a barcode or a fax or something, and typically it's a rep's job or a customer service person's job to open up Outlook, pull up the PDF, swivel chair over to their ERP, pull up the 10 key, and just start doing this for however many POs I get in that day. Some of those POs can have hundreds of line items, can take a while, it can be an error-prone process, but this is just the way that it's worked for decades. Being honest, a person with fingers and eyeballs is sort of your intake for sales orders, and order automation helps to sort of automate that. This is one of the very first sort of AI features we built as a workflow tool inside of ECommerce. So we've seen this work, and this is in the survey that we did. I think this was the number one use case for AI. It was about 81% of companies surveyed had deployed something, and there are standalone vendors that do this. There's platforms like ROI that do it, and there are other vendors that provide this kind of service. But this is the kind of thing that an LLM specifically is pretty good at doing, is taking data and turning it into something structured. The other one is customer service AI. About 73% of the companies surveyed had deployed something. We all know what that is. That's the chat bot on the front end that has a name but isn't really a person. I think we've all sort of had that sort of skeptical and kind of are you real? Or you call and there's somebody with really good enunciation on the and with little pauses, and you're like, I don't think I'm talking to Robert somehow. But customer service AI is there as a you know, especially in the sort of high volume support, call center oriented distribution, especially, we've seen a lot of adoption for it there. And again, it can't, for it to be successful, what we see is it can't just be sort of an intake like chatbot that like answers some number of very easy, obvious questions and then like spits back out to a rep or somebody. Typically, we see where that's successful is that it's being integrated in with a knowledge base, it's being integrated in with CRM software, so that like if a current customer is using that and they're trying to get a request a sample, if I'm a manufacturer, for instance, or I'm trying to return something, you know, it's kicking off some kind of workflow in the back end to a task, an alert, an email. There's some kind of management and orchestration of those requests on the back end of it, and it's not just sort of like a surface level chat bot. And the last thing I would say is that you also in B2B, we all know pretty much everybody's portal is behind a login. So like how much information you make available to the general public via a chat bot versus what you make available to somebody who's logged in. And then when someone is logged in, whether or not I don't want to give pricing for some other account. Somebody is asking my chatbot for customer service, purposes, and so making sure that whatever is built is actually knows who is asking and can contextually give the right answer based on who it is, which is something that our smart agent does do, but not all of the solutions on the market actually do. And there have been some funny stories about people getting like blueberry muffin recipes from somebody's customer support bot, or literally getting someone else's chart of accounts, from a chat bot that wasn't locked down enough.
Well, and you notice that Robert's voice is just a little tinny,
a little bit fake piped in like background noise. Yeah.
Yeah. When manufacturers get AI right in e-commerce, what kind of ROI should they realistically expect? And where are you seeing the most measurable impact today?
That's a pretty great point. Where are we seeing the most impact? I think we're seeing it in order automation is there's a reason why that's I would say the number one use case where we see it deployed, frankly. So I think part of that is because orders are a thing that exist. They're in high volume. They're already like a highly touched thing. Lots of people, employees, have to do something with that order to make it come to life, to get it entered, to get it picked, packed, and shipped, to get it routed, and then to get the invoice paid on the other end of it, net 30, net 60 or whatever. Like there's a bunch of different teams. And a lot of that stuff is high friction, and that can be to some extent partially automated. What most folks are saying is that they're using it for back office automation and data entry. Like that's the big sort of adoption piece. Most companies are looking at employee productivity, enhanced sort of, productivity basically, as kind of the larger KPI. We're seeing that with our customers who are using our solution. They're usually citing some level of like 20 to 30% is what we see is pretty common, like efficiency gains. Just time saved, right? Time saved in what was a manual, sort of like a person having to do a thing, being able to automate a lot of it. And there's always an 80-20 rule in effect, which is you're always going to have the weird customer who does something that's so like out of left field that like no AI or system is going to really know what to do with it. And you need to have a really good, it needs to feel seamless basically in the customer experience to that. But yeah, I would say 20 to 30% is pretty common ROI depending on the process. Some things are completely eliminated, right? Some things are, I would say, added.
Finally, AI.
Yeah, very good.
All right. Well, Aaron, thank you very much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.